welcome back to my channel. Today we are making the hoppang laptop sleeve by Tryxus Designs. I've actually made several of these. So this one is the one that we're doing today because hobby needed a new one. But I've also made some with embroidery and a waterproof lining. And I did one in all vinyl because I thought that was really fun. This was for my old laptop though, so unfortunately I didn't get to use it before it blew up. So on the one I'm doing today, I actually show you the major issue. So the major issue people have is the end where the zippers are. So I deliberately sew it wrong, but then I show you what accidentally might have happened so that you can fix it. I know that's not something I normally do, but I do know that a lot of people had issues with this when the pattern come out. So I thought I'd deliberately sew it wrong so that I can show you how to fix it. So stay tuned and see how this is made. Let's get started. This pattern only has 5 pieces. So one of my pieces is actually my zipper end, and then it's just got an inside, a lining and an outside, and then the 2 pieces for the pocket. You can add straps, however my husband didn't want them, he didn't want handles, and so we do what he wants. So let's start with our lining piece. Now I've actually got the pattern up next to me, so we will be kind of doing like a sew along because I haven't made this in a while. So what first thing we're going to do is we're going to put the right sides together, and one piece is going to be shorter than the other, and that's meant to happen. So we're going to use whatever seam allowance you actually put in the pattern. So because it's a create your own story, you can pick your seam allowance and then tell it the size of your bag or laptop. I'm going to do one end, and then I'm going to pull this one up to this edge. Now it's meant to be shorter because the idea is that the outside's going to overlap. I have made this in vinyl before, so the vinyl comes under, and then that's where your magnet's going to sit to give it that extra stability. Now, if you wanted to pin this, you definitely could. My fabric on the outer piece here has been interfaced with the extra heavy non-woven iron-on, and then my lining has a woven iron-on. So now we're just going to turn that in the right way. Like this. Oh, I've missed this corner. Hold on. The corner folded over on me. That's okay. I can fix that. There we go. Crisis averted. Can't even tell. Okay, so Alright, so flip it out. You may want to iron this. I'm just going to finger crease it because I have not set off my iron yet. Now, a good way to find the center is to fold this in half and join the seams, and then just do a little clip right here. So the easiest way to center this is going to be doing it like this. Clip. And then that same seam would come out the other side. And then that's the center of that side. And then that is the center of that side. Take all of those, put them in the bin. Okay, so now when we lay it down, we can center those notches together. And so then that is going to fold over the edge for us. So I'm just going to chuck a few clips. So we're smoothing out from the center out so that that top edge has got a little bit to fold over like that. And then we're going to do the same to the other side. And then I'm going to baste that in place. on one side. So we're only going to base on place one side because I still want to get the back of my magnet in there. So you don't have to have a magnet if you don't want to. You could just do two pockets. But I'm going to do a magnet to show you how to do it. And hubby wasn't specific on that bit. He just said no handles. So I'm just going to base one side. So basting is basically joining it within the seam allowance so that we're not going to see it later. Right, so that's now just going to be easier to work with. So now what we want to do is find the center. So I'm going to fold it over like this. And then that's my center. So I'm going to use my friction texture to mark the center there. And then I'm going to trace on my magnet. Like that. And then if I just take off two of those clips, I can get my hand inside so I can clip those center points. You can also use, actually, which is probably easier, a craft knife. So I've actually now got two craft knives in my sewing room. One sits near this sewing machine and the other one sits over on my cutting table. Because sometimes I can prep over there as well. So if you don't want to cut through your lining, which is why you want to get your hand underneath, you just make two little incisions like that. And then I've got some fray stopper glue. This is actually quite an old bottle. This stuff lasts ages. So anything fabric, I will put a little dab of this if I cut a hole so that it won't fray further down the track. Because if it frays, then your magnet's more likely to fall out, and that's not worth it. I think I only paid about $7 for the bottle, and I've had it for like 2 years so far, and it's still going strong. Okay. So I'm going to install the male part or the skinnier part onto here, and the female will go onto the main part of the bag. So I'm going to take my gasket and put it on underneath. You should be able to feel that. If not, peek through the side, like so. Always put your lid back on your craft knife so you don't hurt yourself. Been there, done that. Okay, and now I can base the other side as well. If you want to, you can do a top stitch along here. I don't think I want to. Oh no, I will. We'll do a top stitch. So I'm just going to do 1/8 of an inch, and I'm going to crank my stitch length up to 3 3/4 to make it look more decorative. Now, if you've picked a fabric that isn't directional, so this one's pretty directional, so I'm going to get away with it. But if you've picked something that isn't directional, I'm not sure if that was an option in the create your own story part, but otherwise you just take the outer panel and then you add an extra seam allowance, divide it by 2 and cut it. And that way you can join it so it is directional. Now I'm going to do some magic, and I'm going to top stitch this side even though the magnet's in the way. So I'm going to stick my finger on the magnet. So when I get to it, I can hand crank and so not snap a needle while trying to stitch through it. So that's where the magnet is. So we're just going to go the other side of it. Okay, so now technically we've sewn all 4 sides. I'm going to trim my tails. And then I'm going to grab my outer piece. So my outer piece is the same fabric as my lining. Now I've already got the center marked on these ones, but I now need to mark the center on the main panel. It's all about the centers. I'm not going to use my snips because every time I do, I cut my finger. I've learnt my lesson. So you just want a really, really small snip. You don't have to take out like a chunk of the fabric. Okay, so then we're going to center that with that. And we're going to stitch it. I'm going to baste it again down this side. There we go. Oh, I've left my, hold on, I've got to go grab my ruler. Give me my ruler. All better. So now we're just going to baste the other side down as well. Like so. And then we're going to need my big ruler. And again, I might do it in white Chaco pen or blue so that you guys can see the lines better on the screen. So with the center, I am going to draw a line 1/2 inch each side of the center. So I know you can't necessarily see. So the center is where we've done all of our clipping, which makes that nice and easy. There we go. So now we can sew these lines. You can even go back to a joining stitch length if you like. And then back stitch. And then I'm just going to pivot and come to this side. I'm not going to clip that little stitch, but I am going to back stitch at the start again. Like that. Oh, there's my garbage truck. So then this is the side that doesn't have the magnet. So we need to decide where we want our pocket. So I'm just going to stick it off center. I don't like mine in the center. I like mine off center. So you've got a big section and a little section. But you can definitely put this line wherever you like. And then trim your tails. And so then this side, we need to put the other section of our magnet in. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab this and center this over the magnet like that. So I'm just going to, you can't really see what I'm doing. So here's where the magnet is. So I just want to take the other part of this, and so that I can see where I'm going to trim my holes. Now this is how I do it off camera, so I'm going to show you how I do it. Instead of drawing lines, I'm just going to stab this through one side like that, and then hold it and stab the other side. So it's just instead of having to draw. But if you are new to sewing, drawing it's possibly easier. I just do it that way because I've done this for ages. So I'm going to take some fray stopper glue again, and I'm going to put it over the slits. So you don't want to squeeze this. It comes out very, very runny like water. So you just want to kind of let it fall out of the nozzle. And there's another tail I need to trim. Okay, so now if all's gone well, your magnet should just automatically close. So that's your outside kind of done, really. So now we're going to need our lining piece. and some zipper. So with the create your own story, it actually tells you how long of a zipper you do need. I also played this game. I've made a few of these. So, they're not my zipper scissors. Always cut your zipper with your zipper scissors. It's my life advice to you. Have a separate pair. Alright. Ta-da! Zipper. So now, you can kind of do it on either piece. It doesn't really necessarily matter. But we need to mark. It tells you how far down to mark. So again, we're going to need our ruler, which is here. So I'm going to mark down like that and in like that, and then do the same on this end, there and there. So you should just have these little marks. Now the pattern tells you exactly what these are, and I don't give out measurements, just so you know. Okay. So now I'm actually going to split my zipper. I think this is going to be the easiest way for me. So we're going to line our zipper up along that edge that we just did. And I'm just going to baste it in place. Now you can do this on the lining or the outside. And then needle down, I'm going to pivot this across like that. Now you can clip this if you want to, or you can just freehand it like I am. It's entirely up to you. Always stop with the needle in the down position, because then we're going to lift the foot up to pivot. Now I've cut a little bit too much because, again, I forgot to look at the amount I needed. But that's okay. I don't need to worry about that right now. I can chop it off at the end. So we're going to do the same again. Get my markings on. All right. And so now I need to make sure that the opposite end is going to hang out here. Hold on. I've got an alarm set on my phone. Get out of the way. There we go. So I want my excess on the same side because I am going to put a zipper tab on this. So I actually want to start from this end. So this time I'm going to clip it in place so that I know where I'm starting and finishing. So you're going to probably need to use a few clips for this. And then again, I'm going to get to there. Of course, you're going to be difficult. I should have done this side first and then done the other side, but that's okay. You can also use pins if you want to. So I'm just going to hold it down where I need it and use some wonder clips to pin it in place so that my excess is on the same side. Now, if you're going to tuck your zip in instead of having the tail out the side, you probably don't really need to worry about this. But because I want my excess out the side, mainly because hubby wants his excess out the side, that's why I'm doing it this way. So I don't have to pin this last little bit because I can just kind of hold it. I'm going to put this clip right on my mark like that, and so then I can pivot it down like so. So now we're going to start this side and clip up to there and then pivot. And stitch along. Now I've got a thread stuck in my zipper. There we go. Not my zipper. I've got a thread stuck in my foot. I actually just unclip this last little bit so that I get a nice crisp edge like that. And so now you should have something that looks like this. So now we're going to take our outside and attach it. So I'm going to use clips for this. That's not for clips. Move Scully over here. I'm going to start with the top. And clip along here. Like so. And then I'm going to come up to the other end and clip along the top. Making sure that the zipper is tucked in and not going to be stitched over. It's very important, especially when you get to the corner, because you've got potentially a little bit of a bump because the zipper's turning the corner. Just again, I'm going to tuck it all in like that. Then I'm going to come back and do these sides. Tuck in the zip, see how it's sticking out? We want to tuck it so it's facing in and then clip it down. And the reason I'm doing this bit last is because it's easier to do the straight top than start with the tricky corners. Okay. So now we're going to stitch this down. I'm going to have the lining side up so that I can see what's going on. Now, the most important part in this pattern that a lot of people miss is you have to angle this first bit and we have to cut and clip it once we've sewn it. So if you miss the clipping of this edge, it won't sit as well. Needle down. Now I'm stitching just to the inside of my original stitches to get close to the zipper and also to hide those stitches. Slow and steady wins the race with this because I'm using this hand to make sure, I'm basically putting my nails on the zipper to make sure that we're not stitching it accidentally. Especially getting up to this corner, because the corners can be a bit tricky, especially if you're new to sewing. That's not to say that you shouldn't still try and make it. You should just make sure you're not stitching the zipper. I actually get fake nails because I find it easier to sew with them than without. Okay, so again, tucking that out of the way. And then tucking all of the zipper out of the way as well. And I just want to sew to the inside. Now I can feel that this corner is going to give me grief already. Needle down and pivot. The corners are the trickiest areas, but they're not impossible. And this is also good practice. There we go. So now I'm going to actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this and make that little cut that we need to make. So you just need to cut it on an angle up to but not through the stitches. And I'm also going to cut out this excess in the corner. That's going to make the corner sit nicer. And then cut that angle up to the zipper, like so. Cut, trim, trim, and cut. Okay, excellent. So now we're going to fold the panels right sides together. Like so. We're going to use some Wonder clips to clip down the side. Now I'm going to start with the outside pieces, and then I'm going to do both sides of the outside. Like this, and then come to this side. I'm going to tuck in this excess zipper, and then clip along here. Mine's got a little skew it. There we go. Oh no, I dropped it. Oh. Okay. No. Go this way. There we go. All right, so we're going to start with just this side, and we're going to stitch from the bottom up to just before where we've clipped. So you've got this little clip mark. We're going to stitch from the bottom up using the seam allowance that you chose in your pattern. Also, this pattern comes in centimeters and inches, which I thought was really cool. And then flip over to the other side. Okie dokie. So now it's nearly done, by the way, guys. Next part is lining side. So we're going to need to fold this down so we can do the lining. And one side we're going to keep an opening so that we can turn our bag through. Because if we sew it all the way shut, that's not going to work out for us. So I'm going to do all of this side, like this. And then I'm going to stitch the top section. So I'm going to leave all of this open and I'm just going to stitch this little side bit here so that I can turn the bag inside out. Like that. So now I've got this whole gap. We'll use the word gap because it works better. So I'm going to start with the opposite corner and push it in so that I've got something to grab to. And then I'm going to slowly kind of fold it over onto itself, basically making it implode so that it will then fit through my gap. Now don't push too hard or you're going to tear something. And you might just want to slowly kind of ease it out. Grab little bits and pull it through. So I'm going to pull this lining and I'm just slowly working it over until it pops out, and then I'm going to stick my hand back in and push the corners out. Now because these are nice tight corners, you may want to use like a turning tool. I have a flute cleaner, which may sound ridiculous, but I promise it works. And it is not where it's supposed to be. Of course it's not. My child also likes to play with it, so that's a good opportunity for him to steal my stuff. But that's okay. I can just use my fingers. So we're just pushing the corners out. You can even use some big scissors if you want to, but just be very, very gentle because you don't want to stab your scissors through your seam. Even though this is quite a thick seam because it's got the foam and all the interfacing and everything, you still just want to be very, very careful if you're going to use scissors. Okay, so now with this last little gap, we're going to do what we always do and tuck the raw edge in like that. And by using this end and not the end near the zipper, this is going to be much, much easier to sew. So I'm just going to back stitch and slowly stitch down and then back stitch at the end. And then I can push the lining in. I also need to pull my zipper corners out like so. All right, so now, oops, I missed one. You know, actually what would be really cool is if you turned that into like a wristlet. Anyway. Okay, so I'm going to do the top stitching on this. You can skip it. It does have an option to where you don't have to top stitch. But to show you how to do it, I am going to do it. So the first thing I'm going to do is start pinning or clipping this down so that both sides are even. And I'm not too worried about what the zipper's doing. I'm probably going to squash it a little bit, but that's okay. The idea is to get the seam with the foam and everything down so it's flush on both sides so that when we're top stitching, we're not messing with the back. Because I always top stitch from the top. That's just me. So if you see here, see how because it's got the foam, it's not sitting flush? The clips are just going to help push it flush for the stitching. So again, making sure I've pulled out that corner and then clip it. Another thing you could do to help is if you've used double-sided iron-on foam like I have, I could actually take an iron and iron the lining to itself so that it wouldn't move. But I will be doing that at the end with Bruce, my fancy new iron, since my awesome other one died. Can't win them all, I guess. So you probably don't need as many clips as I've done, but I just want to make sure that everything is going to be lovely and flush. Okay, so that's now what we've got. So I am going to start from the joiny end. So I'm going to push the bag kind of down to make it flat so that it's going to fit under. And I'm also going to put my stitch length up to 3 3/4. Make sure my needle's all the way up so I can get it under. And then I am going to start, and I know you can't really see, but I'm going to start right at the join. And I'm using a 1/8 seam allowance so that I get nice and close to the zipper. So I'm just going to stitch my way up. I've got another thread stuck in my zipper foot. I'll stop with my needle down, lift my foot and pivot. And so now I can pull this part of the bag out. So as we get closer, the fact that I've squished the zipper is not going to matter because by the time I get near the clip, I take it off and then the zipper moves back out of the way. It was more just to hold the foam and everything where it needed to be. You also want to make sure that the other side is well and truly out of the way. So we're going to get to here, to the corner, and then pivot down, and then needle down and go across where the zipper is. Needle down, pivot up. One more stitch. Again, squishing the bag out. Needle down. You want to make sure that your zipper ends here out of the way. I'm going to squish the bag down and then I'm going to sew over that seam and then backstitch. Now I can already see a mistake I've made, and I've made it deliberately so that I can show you how to fix it, by the way, because otherwise you might get super frustrated. So the actual bag is pretty much done, but this end, I've deliberately got an issue here. So the way to fix this is you're going to face the zip slightly in, and then we're just going to stitch across here. So if you didn't stitch up high enough before, we still need to seal this zip off. So if you face them both to the inside like this, and I'm just going to stitch across there. So this is probably the hardest part, that where most people make the mistake, which is why I thought I did it, but I didn't bring it up earlier, because obviously I don't want to teach you the mistake. So if you've got this issue where your zips aren't in, what you want to do is you want to bring them together, and there should potentially be a little gap where you could have tucked them in into this part of the zipper here. So another thing you can do is you can unpick here, and you should be able to just tuck your zipper inside. So if you unstitch those 4 stitches, technically there is now a gap where you can push your zippers all the way into between the 2 layers like that. So I'm going to flip that one over like that. And you can just fiddle with them and tuck them inside. There we go. Chop all of that off. So now that I've got a gap, I can technically get my finger between the layers. So you can now just tuck that in between the two layers, like so, and then stitch across. Again, squish the bag so that everything's out of your way. And then tuck the two layers in and stitch across. I'm just going to double back stitch. And voila, crisis averted. So now we just need to put our zipper on. Now my zipper is starting to fray, so we just need to cinch those ends and put half your zipper in and then your other half, and once they're lined up even, you just push. Haha! Zipper on. So now I'm going to decide how long or short I want my zipper end, and I think I'm going to chop it off to about here because hubby isn't going to want a wristlet strap. Although I do think it's a really cute add-on that you could do. Now this is the width of my zipper and twice the length of the width. So this should make a nice square on the end. So I'm just going to stick a piece of double-sided tape down the center like this. Smooth it down. And then stick this halfway up the zipper tape. So you want to find halfway. You can actually fold it most of the way in your hand like this, and then just slot the end on. Now apparently I pulled my end apart, but that's okay. So, I'm so uncoordinated today. All right, like that. Slide it all the way up to the end. And then we can just stitch around. Do two stitches and then back stitch. And then we can go all the way around the edge. You could do an X if you wanted to. You could do a fancy zigzag if you're skilled like that. I'm going to just stitch around the edge. I'm going to trim off these tails before I get back to the start so that they don't get caught and in the way. And then stitch down. I think I just decided I want to do a cross after all. So I'm going to stitch down this way. And then I might stitch, you've got to stitch either across the bottom or up the side. So you've got to try and really make sure you get into the same holes as whichever way you're going, so that it's less obvious. And then crisscross down and then back stitch. And voila, done. He's got his laptop with him, so I can't prove to you that it fits, but I promise it does because I've made several of these. I hope that was helpful, guys, and stay tuned for the next one.